Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Right of Reply. I'm here with my co-host Tristan Green on his last probationary episode.
I sneaked in. I sneaked into the studio like a rat for this one. I wasn't actually invited.
We're hoping we don't have to pay him next time, but we'll see. Um, so we're on the second half of our two-part AI little series here. And today we're going to focus more on the sort of cultural and microeconomic effects of AI. So we're going to look at the university. We're going to talk about interpersonal relationships, stuff related to the collapsing global fertility rate, languages, and how AI is going to affect our domestic politics.
All right, Nick. So, how does AI worsen the fertility crisis?
I mean, in my opinion, it probably will, right? Because for those that haven't seen it, so Grok has come out with the Grok Companion. And so this is essentially an anime girl that talks to you in a very sensual voice and is basically designed to make sure that people who use it never go out into the real world and find human companionship. And this sort of seems to be part of what both Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg foresee as a big part of the AI future. You're going to have AI friends. I don't see how that helps the current problem we have of birth rates collapsing in essentially every country in the entire world, which is sort of careening welfare state budgets in the 20-year plus time horizon, into the abyss. To me, it seems as though the countries most susceptible to these sorts of technologies, like Japan, South Korea, more insular cultures, already have the worst problems. And I think it could just make things even worse. Where do you stand on this?
I completely disagree. I think AI will actually alleviate the fertility crisis completely.
How's that?
Look, I think that's a flaming hot take. I actually think that the correct take, the incredibly cold take, is that the fertility crisis will be solved by AI. The reason this is because automation all right. In the next 3 years, all rich people in America will have a robot maid. In the next 6 to 10 years, all middle-class homes in America will have a robot maid. The reason I think this, look at China right now. Go to China, look at all the stupendous innovation that they're doing. Or actually, even better, go to Outrageous Fortune and read the 2 posts we have on AI automating your job.
But is having maids a constraint on fertility?
Oh, I should have mentioned that. Yes. So if I'm putting myself in a woman's shoes for a second and I'm trying to have a family, that requires me taking a long period of time off of work, and it also requires me investing a huge amount of just my time and money into it, right? If a lot of jobs are either automated or complemented by AI labor, you'd expect incomes to increase, and real incomes will increase because just like dishwashers and refrigerators made having families easier, robot maids will make families easier. Just picture, I know so many couples who spend so much time washing dishes or cleaning their house, and they have like 2, 3 kids. And I'm just imagining if you automated much of those jobs, you would save so much time. And marginally, family life would look much more attractive when society is more automated.
But of course, family life wasn't super attractive seeming when people used to have families of 10 children.
That's true, but that's because it was a different cost-benefit analysis. Back then, you needed someone to take up the farm if you were to randomly get injured. Obviously, it has gone down a lot. Maybe you would say, well, what about in 1950? What was the average births per woman in 1950? Probably 5? Or during the baby boom, it was probably like 5, you'd guess. And they didn't have a farm. So maybe my argument is fallacious.
I'm glad you talked yourself down.
Well, I said maybe. In 1950,
You said your take was the cold take.
well, it's the cold take because it's the correct take. Because look.
So for reference, the replacement rate fertility is supposed to be 2.1 births per woman. A country with a 2.1 TFR is going to keep its population steady going forward for the future. So if Canada was at 30 million people, there was no migration in or out, and we had a 2.1 TFR, Canada would stay at 30 million people in the long run. Korea's fertility rate today is around 0.75 per woman. That is
Tough.
literally unsustainable. They have the lowest in the world. Their healthcare system and their pension system are going to be entirely debt financed within 2 decades. And following this line of reasoning, their society could actually collapse within, well, by the end of the century.
Except it'll be automated. That's the thing.
That's their hope.
Artificial
that is really
intelligence,
their hope, isn't it?
And this is why people really need to look into what China is doing right now, because China is making China's just making leaps and bounds in humanoid robots. And within the next 10 years, I really do think that so many service jobs will be automated by robots. They can already do kung fu and backflips.
Very economically productive uses. Do you think AI and robots are an integrated pair of technologies? Like, do you think their fates are intertwined? Do you think if AI
for
fails,
sure.
that robotics will fail?
Oh, well,
And vice versa?
I think that if robotics fails, LLMs will not fail. However, I do think that eventually the union of the two will produce a machine that could automate 99% of all jobs, like not even complement, but just fully automate. That's a bit of a while away. The main bottleneck is really the lack of dexterity in most humanoid robots and their fingertips. Our fingertips are incredibly sensitive, and that's hard to program in. But again, I would just encourage the viewer to go and research that, read the blog post about it. But there's just a lot going on. Like China currently has these things called lights out factories where, and again, I'm talking about humanoids here, but there are also other robots working in manufacturing in China that are just incredibly innovative. Like they have these factories that are lights out because they operate 24/7 with no humans involved. They're literally dark. They're not paying for electricity. It's
Really?
just robots manufacturing day and night with the lights off. And like that just isn't happening in the West, and people don't know about it. But in China, there's serious innovation in that sector, and I really do believe. And there are also, of course, Tesla has its own humanoid robot that is a bit behind Chinese competitors. There is, of course, Boston Dynamics, and there are also this Norwegian company, which I forget the name of.
But once we put AI minds into the robots, I mean, don't we
Mhm.
have to start considering robot rights?
That really depends. I think that's a bit of a non sequitur, though, with the fertility rights question. Although, if you want, we can get into that. Does the viewer want that? Oh, if only we could send out a poll.
I just talked to the viewer. He said no.
Okay. All right. Well, then we'll get back to the fertility rate. Basically, my thesis is that maybe not for South Korea. South Korea might be cooked. However, other countries like the U.S. and especially African countries, I think, will be quite literally saved by humanoid robots automating many service jobs that would have just had no one working because all the young people are gone. And especially in old folks' homes. Like, I think already in Japan, there is very experimental humanoid robots in elderly care homes that are helping with day-to-day activities and stuff like that. So I really am confident that it is an issue, that the fertility rate is a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
However, AI and humanoid robots are just going to swoop in. That's a very dramatic narrative, though.
Well,
So
hey, maybe.
it could happen, but that's my take.
Okay. So moving from effects on fertility to politics more broadly, do you view AI as a liberal democratic technology, ideologically neutral, perhaps some other ideology, perhaps reinforcing Chinese ideology? I mean, where do you see it going in that direction?
I was thinking of DeepSeek when you asked that. And I was going to say it depends on the AI.
Well, do you remember when DeepSeek came out, the way it would respond to like questions around Tiananmen Square and
Mhm.
other
Does
things?
it still respond like that? Because I don't really use it as much as
I
I
don't
did.
think so. I think they patched that out, but maybe it's different if
Oh.
you're in China.
Yeah, it probably is. I would say I think that we're quite lucky that most of these AIs are being developed in a place like the Bay Area, which has supreme norms, in my opinion. Norms of, well, maybe not free speech anymore, but at least very liberal norms of expression and rebelliousness and creativity and individuality. I really like the Bay Area a lot for that. And so I think we are quite lucky that these AIs are being developed in a place like the Bay Area with its rich history rather than a place like China or even a place like Germany, which I think both have worse norms.
If in the counterfactual AI companies were based in Canada, do you think it would be right for the government to step in and tell them you need to align it this way and not that way? Like if the government came in and told XAI, the makers of Grok, you just can't do this. Like you cannot have Mecha Hitler going around on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that would be for the better? I mean, obviously that's the fringe case, that one, but
So the situation is that Canada wants to help align the AIs.
well, the government gets involved in AI alignment instead of just leaving it to the private companies. The government comes and says, well, we want it to be instilled with this value and this value and this value.
Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about alignment to give a good answer, I think, to that. But my answer would be that would slow the pace of progress tremendously. However, you might say that's worth the trade-off because you're like a Yudkowsky fanatic and you're really obsessed about existential risk.
Well, who's Yudkowsky?
Eliezer Yudkowsky. Less wrong guy. Yeah, well, for people who don't know, he's obsessed with existential risk, and he actually came out with a new book recently, but he's been around for a long time, saying the same old thing, saying that AI is impossible to align, and that it is most likely, in fact, most definitely going to kill us all, if not properly aligned, but it's also impossible to align, so we're all dead.
Well, that's bleak.
Hey, he's done a bet with an economist named Brian Kaplan. I think it was $1,000, and the bet was that AI would kill us all.
What's the point of betting on your death? Who's collecting that?
So basically, the way they did it was that Brian Kaplan just advanced him the 1,000, and so if Brian Kaplan is correct, he'll get the money back. But if he's not correct, then he just lost it.
Oh, I see. Well, how could Brian Kaplan be correct?
Well, Brian Kaplan could be correct if we are ushered into sort of this utopia of non-scarcity, I think. It's a little bit of a vague bet, but it's true. But I would say if we're like 5 years into some utopia, Yudkowsky would probably cough up the money. But anyway, in conclusion, that yeah, I don't know enough about the technical aspects of alignment to evaluate that. I would probably say no, because I'm more interested in the pace of progress than the alignment.
Do you want to bet 1,000 with me where I'll take your 1,000 and then I'll pay it back if we all die?
Well, so you're that confident? No, I don't think so. Because I would. What's the economic term for you wanting to round out your consumption over a period of time? Like you don't want your consumption to be spiky.
Right, you're just, intertemporally smooth.
Yeah, I want smooth consumption curves, and I currently will have a lot more money in the future than I do now. So it's actually, I would actually rather get 1,000 and pay it later. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I might do that. I might do that bet when I'm 40. I'd have enough money to play around with then.
So then let's maybe transition to the source of much of the error in your life, education. When we think about where AI is having the biggest impact in the world right now, it's either programming or education. Like, I don't think you disagree with me on that, would you?
The place where they're having the most impact?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're in the university. Do you have strong opinions about the direction of the university in the future? Just where AI is right now? I mean, what do you see in your classes? Are any of your professors making big moves to counter its usage?
The main counter that I see, yeah, in both in both math and essay-based courses, the solution seems to be to do everything in person. So the essays you write as exams, and you don't do any assignments in my math courses. You just do them as, like midterms, which I think is okay. For math, it's probably not as bad, but I do think there is a lot of value in being able to go home, research a piece of writing, spend a lot of time with it,
Hmm.
go through different paths, say, this is an unproductive research path, let me start over. You don't really get that in a 2-hour exam.
So you think at the margin, more college students should be bloggers?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that implies I think they have something to say. Yeah, I think they do, if they're in the economics department.
So, okay, here's a scenario. Let's say we switch to doing a bunch of in-class writing over the next like 3 years. Okay.
Mhm.
And the schools build up a corpus of every student's written work and what it looks like. And then they go back and they search their records of the last 3 years before now. We're talking from 2022 to now.
Mhm.
And they compare the signature, the writing signature, to what was submitted by the students then. And they decide to go after students that used AI um, in the past.
It's just so counterproductive.
How catastrophic do you think that would be?
I just think that really what I'm getting to though is that not only should economics be not only should economics student be writing more blogs, but also the philosophy students too. But people should be using AI more instead of shying away from essays that you can take home and do research on, which is important to be able to do. I think that we should have even more of those, but just explicitly teach them how to use AI. In fact, I think most universities should have a 100 level course that is mandatory for almost all students that is just about teaching AI. You could have different departments, like how different departments have stats courses that are geared towards what they want from them. You could have like a politics department which has a 100 level AI course that teaches you how to use AI well in political science, or an economics one that teaches you how to use whatever. I mean, it's a great tutor. Like in my calculus class, I used AI all the time. I think a lot of students don't really know how to use it that well, though. They would just plug in a problem and get the AI to solve for them, and they would bomb the test. But I think it would be cool if they had some 100 level, just one semester class where it's like, this is
Mhm.
how you prompt an AI well, and this is how you use it as a tutor for math, et cetera, et cetera. And you could do that in all the
Well,
classes.
let's stay on that point then for a second. Which of the chatbots do you currently find most useful? Like, do you have ones
Hmm.
that specialize in different things, or you just use one that's strictly better?
uh, Last year, so my third year, I had, I got rid of all my bookmarks, and I thought it would look cool aesthetically if I had like all the AIs there as like a family. So I had ChatGPT, I had Claude, I had DeepSeek, I even had Sesame, which is, if you don't know what Sesame is, you should look it up. It's kind of fun. It's like an AI you can talk to.
I feel they likely don't know who Sesame is.
Oh wait, so I think that was yeah. So ChatGPT, Claude, DeepSeek, Sesame. Oh, I'm forgetting. Gemini is 5.
No Grok?
Oh yeah, iGrok. Yeah, so that's 6. Oh, and then I had Notebook LM. This 7. So
Kind of just Gemini's little bro.
yeah, so so about 6, 7 AIs, and what I thought was cool about that was I get a lot of variety. Although I, as time went on, I zeroed in on my favorite AI, I think. I was using Gemini for quite a while because you can sorry, it was 8 because I was also using what is it called? The experimental
What country is it from?
Gemini.
Oh,
The experimental one where you can use Gemini 2.5 Pro for free.
yeah, AI Studio.
Studio. Google AI Studio. If you don't know, you can use Gemini 2.5 Pro for free. You don't have to pay. Anyways, I was using Google AI Studio for a while because 2.5 Pro was better than the leading OpenAI model at the time. However, I got the like 2-month free student subscription to ChatGPT, and the memory function is just incredible. I really like that a lot because I can just ask it all these fun questions like, hey, based on what you know about me, what would be the easiest Miles Davis album to get into. And he'd be like, "Oh, well, I know you like Jimi Hendrix a lot, so I'm going to recommend, 1971 um tribute to Jack Johnson."
Does it creep you out how good it's going to get at giving you ads?
Yeah, I get that would be tough. Although as of right now, I actually had a debate with this with my girlfriend recently. OpenAI cannot give your information to ad companies. However, it could of course it could change that. But that's the current contract. But even then, yeah, it would be really good AI. But anyways, I love asking it for recommendations for music and for novels because of that memory function. And so I switched to GPT. So I don't really use Gemini anymore.
So, what do you think the biggest difference is between you and the median user our age when you use
Hmm.
AI? Like, what sense do you have of peers' usage?
Well, certainly for students, I think that, like I said earlier, a lot of students don't use it in an educational way. They mostly just they could use it in a lazy way where they're just like getting assignments done. Whereas I think the true value of AI is like annoying it. Like a normal math tutor would get so annoyed at me for the questions that I ask. Like I would just ask like the same question 3 times in a row. Like I just don't get that. Can you explain that again? And
Infinite patience
AI has
is
infinite
nice.
patience. Yeah. That's the best way to use AI is to actually understand things. Not just to say, can you do this assignment for me? Take a screenshot and then do something else. Is to actually be prompting it over and over and asking it to do things for you. The other thing about prompting is that a lot of times I find it's best when you give it a question and you say, give me some different viewpoints. So answer this question like, okay, what would Tyler Cowen say about this? And what would, I don't know, Michael Humer say about that? Insert any name, whatever, just public intellectual or intellectual. And then AI can kind of puppet them and give different points of view. And it's really fun and it teaches you a lot about a different problem. You can think about it a lot of different ways. What about you, Nick? What do you think separates you from the average person?
I think our peers, when I see them using AI, often make certain basic mistakes. So, one instance is the using it for practice problems. If
Mhm.
you just go and you ask it, make me some practice problems for my test. Well, actually, I think this is not super productive because it's likely to just loop the same practice problems again and again and again, unless you come up with a more detailed prompt where maybe you are feeding it your textbook and then you're saying, give me 10 variations on the practice problems at the end of chapter 6. Well,
Mhm.
that's a smart prompt. But I think people are maybe not thoughtful enough about the prompts they use. They just
It's
get the
true.
sense that if I farm enough practice problems, I'm gonna do excellently. But that's not really using it the way it's intended to be used, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, the prompt is really important. I would also say people should just be more creative with it. Like you can really do anything. I remember I thought of last summer or last year I realized, it's kind of annoying to keep track of all my expenses and stuff. And I was like, wait a minute. I could just have ChatGPT be or I think I was using Gemini at the time. But you could just have an LLM be your financial advisor. Obviously, not to invest in stocks. I would not recommend that. But I don't invest in stocks. I just need to do very simple things like, okay, I have this much money. And I'd like to devote. It's kind of like vibe coding. You're like doing a vibe
You're treating it
based.
like a life coach?
Yeah, not necessarily a life coach, but it's like you have your own little accountant where you could say things like, okay, so today I spent this much money at the bar. Is this a good or bad thing? And what you say, right, is that in previous, and you would just keep this chat pinned. You would say, well, this is how much money I have for the month. So I want to spend it on this, this, and this. Like I'm aiming for this much on groceries and this much. Like how much? Or say I'm aiming for this much on groceries. How much does that get me to eat out? And then and then it'd say this much. And then what the value of it is saying every night. I mean, you could literally say, "Yo, should I buy this pint of Guinness right now? What's the expected value?" Because then now you literally have a
Yeah.
financial advisor at your fingertips, which normally would cost like a huge amount of money per hour. So, anyways, is it groundbreaking? No, but these little creative ways to use AI are fun and they save you a bit of
Well, it
time.
makes it a lot cheaper to make rational decisions, you might say.
Hmm.
right? So you can just have it preset up to your preferences pretty much, and then you can give it an idea of something you want to do, and it will come back and tell you pretty immediately whether this is a good or bad idea based on what it knows about what you've told it.
Hmm. What other things do you use it for, Nick? Anything creative?
Um, I would say what's been sort of interesting with the new with the current generation of AI, GPT-5 specifically, I don't find it extremely creative.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
Which I
not.
don't
Yeah.
mind. I don't mind. I think most of the useful stuff we can use it for at the moment in the chatbot function is stuff like uh, research questions and finding. Actually, I find it very useful for keeping up with the news a lot of the time. If I want to ask about a specific issue and I tell it to gather the current news on the subject, it's very good at surfing the web and pulling enough to get informed. And because it knows my preferences, it knows the sorts of things to look for. So it's not going to feed me sensationalistic details. It's going to kind of get down to the ground truth of it.
Hmm.
And I can follow it up, but I mean, over time, the pattern is it consistently matches what I find in like the New York Times, but it just
Hmm.
does it much more faster, and it can answer very detailed questions about any event, which I find is very useful. You can't you can't open the newspaper and ask a very detailed question and have an answer very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I want to kind of talk about the value of the university in general, though, with AI. So, do you have the sense that I do that university degrees from, let's say, 2020 to 2030 in non professional fields like political science, philosophy, economics, history, English, and a few others are or have lost most of their value? I mean, what I'm what my driving thought is that a lot of what the value of your university degree is signaling that I can do the hard work of showing up for 4 years and submitting my stuff on time, adhering to deadlines, keeping a life going while this happens, living on my own, just demonstrating life skills that are prerequisites to get that degree. It's not really about demonstrating, oh, I learned this specific thing and this specific thing. Because unless you're going to an interview at like Google, they're not really going to ask you about specific things you learned. And so when we have AI doing the work for the people in like at very high rates, the strength of that signal in these disciplines seems completely washed out. I worry about that. Honestly, I think it's going to really reduce the value of degrees granted in this specific time period because I don't think people are taking the approach to education that you were talking about a few minutes ago.
Yeah. I think that the signal would be a lot stronger if the university sobered up about the current state of technology and just said to itself, okay, let's just change a lot. And we're just going to get into an AI focused mindset and teach these people how to use AI better than our competing or better than our competing universities. I think this will eventually happen. There will have to be some first movers who will have to kind of take a risk. And I'm sure that's already probably happening with some universities. But of course, with this giant horrendous monstrosity of bureaucracy that is the
Well,
university
I
system,
guess,
it'll
yeah,
be very
you'd think it would
slow.
probably be a private school in the US that'll do it first, right?
Yeah, it'll be very slow to happen.
Maybe one of these small liberal arts schools will sort of figure out a new model. Will
And
that generalize though to Canada and to the big like will it come to UCLA?
I think it I think it will. I think it will once they because these things employers talk to universities, like my econometrics professor was just talking about how he was he was talking to an employer, I think someone who works at a bank recently, and they were like, "Yeah, I think it was Guelph or something
Mhm.
maybe, like they have better they have better grads than you or something like that." Like he was saying like, "Yeah, like the Queens is okay." But I'm just saying like there are feedback channels here, and there are incentives for universities and departments to outcompete other departments regionally. And I think that you will see it spread like after the first mover, you will see it spread pretty contagiously once these other universities start getting really outcompeted. It'll happen slowly and then probably all at once in the next 5 years.
In the next 5 years, really?
Mhm.
That bold. Okay. That's interesting. That dovetails, I guess, pretty cleanly with your other AI predictions, but I
Bright
think
future.
I think universities are such conservative institutions at their core. They are not quick to change, and I do not see that happening. And so I think we're sort of going to enter a bit of a dark age for humanities and arts degrees in general, and probably science degrees too. I mean, it seems that a lot of those disciplines are not immune to people using the AI to mask their own learning deficits.
Mhm.
So I
But
think
like we said, I mean, a lot of things are transitioning in person, which I don't think is the right move, but it is a move that temporarily solves the problem
yeah.
because, like, if you're, well, it's a bit tougher in politics, but is a politics degree ever worth anything to begin with? I mean, anyone who goes into politics is either going to be homeless or working as a lawyer because they have to go to law school. You know what I mean? So I don't think a politics degree is ever worth anything. So, but then you say, what about a physics
Let,
degree?
let's
What
well,
if?
well let's zero in on the law school case for a minute.
Okay,
So agree or disagree, law is clearly one of the most vulnerable
agree,
disciplines to AI.
agree. So in that sense, you if you ever shouldn't have taken a politics degree, you should not take it now.
But I mean, what's very immune? Diplomacy.
That's true. And the government will probably have a lot of fake jobs in the future
So
that
government employment.
don't need to exist.
And the
that
government
could
will
easily
the government
be
will be
automated.
last. The government will be
Yeah.
last to adjust to the value of a BA being different.
Yeah. So I
So
guess
saved? We're saved?
the outlook is fake jobs will save me. Well, thankfully I'm not politics, but fake jobs will save sociology.
And this just keeps getting worse, right? Because if we're talking to humanities and the degree is worth less, law is not doing too hot, and the value of a university education just objectively goes down.
HR is not doing too hot.
Then that's also going to
so-
close off the grad school route, right? Because there's not going to be any jobs in academia because enrollments are going to be falling, and this is already a problem. I mean, there's if you look at the graph of people getting PhDs, it's just linearly rising. And if you look at the graph of enrollments in these programs, it's either flat if it's philosophy, and if it's not philosophy, it's falling rapidly across.
Enrollment in PhD programs or in
No,
bachelor
no,
programs?
in BA programs.
Yeah, so
the
then
people
less,
you're gonna
less
teach.
TA money to go around then.
But more importantly, less professorships.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
Enrollment, really? It's going down in a lot of. I didn't know that. Well, I guess. Well, not in places like engineering or business, right?
no, but I'm talking about the humanities, right?
Oh,
and the
yeah.
arts. It's
Seems like that's been going down for a bit longer than just AI's been around, though, right?
yeah, it has. But I'm saying it's going to exacerbate an existing trend.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty comfortable saying that, actually.
No, I do too. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of sad because I think the liberal arts are important, but I also wouldn't want to be a Stalinist and just keep them important when obviously the foot traffic tells us that people don't really think they're very important. So I don't want to control people.
Well, my view is that undergraduate education in the long run is just going to go back to being intrinsically based. So people that value it in itself, the pursuit of, say, philosophy or of English literature, are going to go back to being like the small class of people that would go to Oxford in England 150 years ago. It's not going to be for everyone. It's going to be for people that really want to do it and are super motivated to do it. The people who currently are in the 90th percentile or higher of their class.
Yeah.
Because for everyone else, it's like, why go for it? It doesn't have economic value. It really just has humanist value.
It's a bit tough too because the cost of universities has ballooned. So it's really not a good outlook for them.
Well, that's the alternative approach, right? We could lean into what would call the summer camp model of university.
Mm.
So if you really buy that university is about signaling to employers that you can do this thing for 4 years, then your explanation of cost ballooning is mostly just making those 4 years as pleasant as possible for students. And so universities have gone from, in their origin, just being institutions to teach classes to students, to becoming like gyms and pools and clubs and just tons and tons of leisure options.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is almost like the university as a resort or the university as a hotel. And that, I think, is a pretty real phenomenon. I mean, administrative costs are what have ballooned at universities, and a lot of that has to be connected to the ballooning function of the university. And so they could just really lean into that and just say, well, all along, actually, this higher ed stuff was sort of a, and what we actually meant to do was this like summer camp function. But that seems a little implausible. I feel like they're sort of living if they're living a lie right now, they don't really want to come out and say that quiet part out loud.
Do you think that the economy will transition to a learn on the job model where, for example, if the bachelor's signals nothing, then you would expect, you would expect that most companies would at that point then say to themselves, well, what should we do? Because we've had this model for the last few decades where we hire based off bachelors
I think we're
and
basically already there.
grades.
I think we're basically already in the learning by doing economy. It's just we use the degree as a filter. So that's the initial pass, but it's just the initial pass. It doesn't mean anything 10 years down the line, 5 years, probably not 5 years down the line. And that's sort of a return, I think, to how it used to be in a lot of industries.
So you're saying you get the bachelor's, you get your first job, and then after that, it's mostly just being hired off of experience.
In most fields, I think that's how it is.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that. And so you're saying that we're just skipping, that everything is going to stay the same. 90% of your life is going to stay the
Well,
same.
if you
Just
hear,
that
if you
first
talk
step
to
is
like,
going to change a lot.
if
'Cause
you talk to some old people who have stories of getting into their industries, a lot of industries you didn't need a degree in the past.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think if we just imagine it going back to how that was, to me, that seems pretty likely.
Yeah, our society is so obsessed with credentialism.
Well, Canada is considered the most overeducated country in the world. So maybe this is just a long needed correction.
But so the reason I asked that because I feel like vainly hoping that we would move towards a less credentialist society where you do just learn on the job because I think for most people a bachelor's is a waste of time. But it just seems hard to reverse such a concrete trend.
Which is why I'm not optimistic. I think this is going to be quite bad for people currently in university and probably for employers.
Here's the other alternative. Maybe people get bachelors, but then the master's just becomes the new bachelor's. In fact, I think that is what's happening.
So,
right
well,
now.
some people were thinking that was happening before the before AI got on the scene, but in principle, nothing is stopping a lot of master's students from doing the exact same thing that bachelor's students are doing and using AI. So I just think it pushes the problem down the road. I think you fundamentally have to change how you teach. And most of the ideas on the table you seem to think are just ignoring the technology and so aren't actually the best move. I don't think they'll take the best move. Therefore, I think the university's value has to fall.
Yeah. It won't matter anyway, though, because all jobs will be automated in 6 years.
Should we wrap up there?
Yeah.
You want to say the outro this time?
Okay, I'm outroing.
I'm outroing.
All right, wait. What if we do one word after another? Thank
You
so
much
for
listening,
two
right?
of
Reply,
and
please,
follow
us,
on
Instagram,
at
right?
of
Reply.
and
Thank you.